Maria Montessori, physician and educator, started a movement to improve education for children in the early 1900s Italy. She wanted less fortunate and disabled children to be given the chance to be educated. Once people discovered the impact she had on the children of her school, society realized all children were capable of learning. The Montessori education prepares youth for adulthood. Children learn many life skills in a very profound manner. The idea that all children deserve equal access to education enriches millions of children's lives, communities, and families, and will continue to for many years. The Montessori philosophy promotes conflict resolution, equality and justice for all, and peaceful coexistence. In this documentary, I will explain how conflict and compromise in Maria's personal life shaped her education method, which is practiced worldwide. August 31st, 1870, Chiaravalle, Italy. A child is brought into the world. Her young cries of frustration echo through the room of her birth. Maria Montessori was born into a family of well-educated people. Her father, Alessandro Montessori, worked for a state-run industry as a financial manager. Her mother, Rinaldi Stoppani, was an avid reader and a well-educated woman. This was unusual for Italian women at this time. Soon after Maria's birth, the Montessori family moved to Rome. In 1876, Maria was enrolled in a state school. Maria spent many days as a young girl in local libraries and museums, immersing herself in knowledge. Schools in Rome at the time were boring, dirty, and uninspiring. Maria spent school days sitting in uncomfortable chairs being lectured by her teachers. However, she was courageous, ambitious, and stubborn. She was unwilling to be bound to the classic expectations for women. At the age of 13, she broke barriers and started attending a secondary school for boys. Here she studied accounting, sciences, Italian, and many other subjects. In 1886, Maria enrolled in an all-boys technical institute. She excelled in math and sciences. After graduation, she was determined that she would become a doctor one day. Her father did not think it was appropriate for a girl to become a doctor and encouraged her to become a teacher instead. Regardless, Montessori applied to the University of Rome. Unfortunately, she was not accepted because she was female, but Maria was set on becoming a doctor. Pope Leo XIII interceded on behalf of Maria Montessori. She was then accepted into the university and began to work as an undergraduate in 1890. In 1892, she began her study for a medical degree. However, because she was a female medical student, life was not easy for Maria. She was greeted with social prejudices from her fellow students as well as her professors. She often was not allowed to work with the other male students because it was not deemed socially acceptable. For instance, Maria was forced to dissect cadavers alone and after hours when nobody would see a female working with dead bodies. Maria persevered. She specialized in pediatrics and psychology, and in 1896 she became the first woman to graduate from the University of Rome's medical school. Maria Montessori received a doctorate in medicine. A year after graduation, Maria started her work at the University of Rome Psychiatric Clinic. This is where her work with children began. Part of the work Montessori did was to visit asylums for children deemed insane. Here she saw children with severe learning disabilities. The conditions they were living in were horrendous. After seeing the lack of affection and stimulation for these children, Maria realized something had to be done. She took a position as co-director of a school that focused on the education of mentally disabled children. Her co-director, Giuseppe Montesano, was a well-known psychiatrist. Montessori and Montesano spent every day with the children from morning until night. They'd observe the children and interact with them. They were offered basic materials to explore and play with. She hoped the toys the children used would open their mind and they could function in better ways. The children were making wonderful strides forward. Montessori and Montesano entered some of the children into the Italian state examinations. Against most expectations, a few of the children passed the exam, some even above the average of other children in the state. Maria and Giuseppe were praised by Italian society. Maria was happy with the results of the children with special needs. However, she was appalled by the test results of the children without special needs. Many children without learning disabilities tested significantly below their potential, and she was shocked that so many children were not being taught what they needed to be taught. Maria Maria's personal life had taken a sudden turn. Maria had given birth to her son in 1898. The father of her son was Giuseppe Montessori, the co-director of their school. At the time, an unmarried pregnant woman was a very big scandal. So when their son Mario was born, they made the decision to send him to the countryside to live with a family of farmers. She and Giuseppe would visit occasionally, but Mario didn't know they were his real parents. Montessori made the decision in 1901 to leave the school. She decided to turn her work to all of Italy's children and education system. Montessori threw all of her time and energy into her work. She continued to lecture at the University of Rome and work as a doctor. Maria decided to enroll as a student of psychology and anthropology. She also continued to research and study child development. In 1906, her theories of education were given the chance to be tested. She opened a school in the San Lorenzo slums of Rome. The school was called the Casa dei Bambini. Maria used the method she had developed with the children of the asylum and her recently found discoveries to teach her students. The school was so successful that doctors, teachers, and parents began flocking to the school to observe the children. In 1909, she published a book called The Montessori Method, and she started a training program for Montessori teachers. A few years later, Montessori was visiting Mario when he told her that he knew she was his mother. He asked Maria to take him with her. From that minute on, Mario and Maria were only separated for very brief moments. Maria devoted her time to promoting her method, with Mario always at her side. Her book was translated into English, causing a surge of interest into her method all around the globe. By 1913, over 100 Montessori schools were open throughout the United States. In 1914, World War I broke out in Europe, but even a war-torn world couldn't derail Maria or her movement. Despite the war, Montessori continued to travel, visiting Spain, America, and Holland. With the war over, Maria ended her travels and went home to Italy. She returned home to find a man named Benito Mussolini. He was the leader of the Italian Fascist Party. A factory was established to make toys for the schools and grants were issued. The Montessori pedagogy began to flourish in Italy, but Mussolini aimed to create a society of disciplined and loyal people using Maria's schools. The Montessori method focuses on free thinking and creativity. Maria left Italy unable to make an agreement with Mussolini. Within months, all the Montessori schools in Italy had been closed. She moved to Amsterdam, but soon a new leader emerged very close to her new home. Adolf Hitler was even less tolerant to the idea of free thinking. Soon, all Montessori schools in Germany were closed down. Once again, a fascist movement threatened Maria's method. 1 month after Germany invaded Poland, Maria and Mario boarded a plane and left for India. The movement for independence was gaining strength in India, with Gandhi as the leader. If the movement succeeded, a new education system was in need. Maria set up a training course to teach the educators of India about the Montessori method. But then, in 1940, Mario and Maria were classified as enemy aliens. Maria was briefly put under house arrest, but Mario was taken to an internment camp. This was the longest they had been apart since Mario's childhood, so it caused very much distress for Maria. She kept working hard and training teachers. British authorities granted Maria permission to travel. Montessori personally trained more than 1,000 people during this time. On Maria's 70th birthday, she received a telegram from the British government saying, "We have long thought what to give you for your 70th birthday. We thought the best present we give you was to return you back your son." At last, Maria was reunited with Mario. The war was ending, so the thought of being able to return home to Amsterdam was beginning to feel more real. Mario and Maria returned to Amsterdam in 1946. They found Europe to be war-ravaged. She was now more sure than before that the peace of the world could only be discovered in the education of children. Much of her work had been forgotten, so Montessori once again threw herself into establishing Montessori schools all over Europe. Montessori schools bloomed once more. Maria passed away on May 6, 1952, at the age of 81. Her name, Montessori, is still known around the world today. The difficulties Maria experienced in her own education as a child, her work with disabled children, the absence of her son, and the obstacles of World War I and II helped shape the Montessori philosophy of education. The method was created out of conflict and compromise in Maria's life and focuses on harmony, equality, and fulfilling one's potential. The Montessori philosophy is ever-growing and changing, but it will always focus on children learning in a hands-on, integrated, child-centered, individualized educational environment.
It takes courage to love. It takes courage to trust. It takes courage to try. And I'm sticking to my alibi. I'll keep sticking to my alibi.